Technical difficulties. We think we're back.
Last one of 2021.
Y2K. It got us.
That's the end 21. This is the way to go out.
It got us. Apologies. Sherrod was just saying this was a fluke win. No, I'm just kidding.
You guys missed it. You missed what he said.
Missed it. No, he actually said everything is fixed. We don't know why that happened. We apologize. We hope more people will figure it out.
He said something in between those two things.
Between those two things. But basically what we're trying to figure out is Celtics did things that you like to see them do. Along the lines of what Ime has been preaching, they seem to stick to a game plan. You also had some really good individual bounce-back performances. The Rob game, the Smart game, massive bounce-back from Romeo. And again, I put it to Sherrod to say how much of this is sustainable.
Not much. I just don't think we're going to see them click on all cylinders the way we did. Now, as we were talking about earlier, the one thing that I will say did stand out was the aggressiveness that you saw from Grant Williams, from Romeo, from Pritchard, from the guys that aren't necessarily thought of in that regard. And they're going to need that going forward. That's something that you can sustain. That's something that we can see with more consistency. And I think it makes those individuals, better players, more impactful players, and it helps the team. But as far as like all the shot making and just the way they dominated the glass, I don't think you're going to see that night in, night out. But the aggressiveness that those guys played with outside of the Tatum Brown, guys who always play aggressive, the rest of those guys, that's sustainable.
Yeah, I think that's the part that has to carry over into 2022. I mean, at the end of the day, the one thing you like the most from this game, at least in my opinion, is the fact that the Celtics that lead wasn't teetering. I mean, yeah, it was going up and down, but at the same time, they still had control. I think that's been most frustrating for the Celtics, or at least for Celtics fans watching it, where they give away these huge leads and have to play uphill, or they're going back and forth with the team. And then in the second half or fourth quarter, they turn into a different team and they completely, fall over. That wasn't the case today against the Suns. They kept it going. I thought that they had enough of a cushion because of those guys, because of guys like Romeo and Pritchard and Grant, that they had enough to give up, 67 or 68 points in that second half and still survive with a double-digit win. I mean, that kind of Celtics team, that kind of offense, I don't think you can get used to seeing that. I think that was something that was special today and for today only. But that aggressiveness, that aggression that you want to see from the Celtics night in and night out, from guys who are not just the starters, I think that's something that could carry over.
Okay, I'm gonna cut the line a little bit here, and I want to talk about Rob, which obviously he's a major thing, and I don't mean to make this the Rob show. I'm only jumping into it. Do it. I'm only jumping to it right now because Ime. I don't know if anyone was listening to this, Bobby. I don't know if you had Ime on. Ime said in his post game he didn't know Rob could pass like this. He can't be talking about like he didn't know it coming into today.
No, he meant like into the season.
Before arriving here, he didn't get it. So, okay, good. Thank goodness. Because people are putting that in the chat, and I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know it? Like, I mean, look, if you watched any of it last year, you knew what a good passer he was. He really does have excellent vision. Why do you guys think was today just a matter of it worked and people were making baskets, or were they running? Do you feel like they were running more stuff through their bigs? Because look at the assist totals. You have Rob with 10 and Al with 7, 17 out of your 28 assists, which is a great number. You want to be in those high 20s. 17 out of those 28 assists come from your bigs.
There was better ball movement, not just in terms of just the bigs moving the ball, but just guys moving without the ball. There was that sequence where Rob had the block at one end of the floor, came back down the other side, was at the elbow, and there was a great cut. I think it was by Josh Richardson for a layup. Those are the things that we haven't seen as much of. And I think part of that is because those guys haven't been in position to make those plays because guys aren't moving without the ball to get to spots where they can score. They did a really good job, I thought, for the most part, moving without the ball, which helps guys like Rob. It helps guys like Al who have that great vision to actually have a moving target they can get the ball to.
That's the amazing part of this one. Like it was shocking to see that level of off-ball movement with this group. That's the worst attribute.
That's everything, right? It was everywhere.
They never do that.
Ever. And it's so noticeable when they do, Bobby, because they never do it.
Yeah.
Right. And for Ime to put them in those situations, right? Those high-low actions that got, guys like Grant Williams some good looks, those mismatches. I mean, there was three offensive possessions in a row where they just kept giving it to Grant because the Suns were falling on that mismatch. I think it was Cam Johnson on him or another guard, and he made him pay. And that's exactly what you want to see Grant do, especially when he's able to get the ball in the paint, or around the free throw line, put that ball on the floor and make his move. And he didn't think twice.
Yeah, it's a feather in Eva's cap for sure, Josue. Like they went with a lineup today that I think kind of made all our eyes widen, the triple big there, but they had something in mind when they went with that in terms of being able to bring a bunch of active wings off the bench, going to some second units there that could hurt Phoenix a little bit, and like you said, go high-low with the starting offense and have Smart, Brown, and Grant in particular cut off those bigs there. And they both had great passing ability. Horford had a good game in his own right. Rob obviously highlighted this one in terms of what he did in the high post, dribble handoff, some flare screens off the side of him. They ran a lot of really good stuff with the ball in his hands. And it was kind of shocking to see Phoenix just swarm him when he had the ball in his hands, double sometimes, just leave cutters open. That first Romeo make, he just got completely abandoned by Chris Paul on that play, and that sort of led to a waterfall of action and big facilitation from there. That's something you'd like to see more of. Now the zone, I think early they were able to crack that, and that's something I think lent to that kind of high post action there. That's where you want your bigs against the zone, but those guys have the ability, right? We know it. We know Rob last year did these sort of things. Horford's done it his whole career. They can sprinkle this in. I don't think this is the antidote for their offense, letting the bigs handle things, but it's certainly something they're both capable of, and just another attribute for them to lean on. It's not something we see them do a ton.
Rob's well beyond capable, okay? Well beyond capable. He has actually got fantastic vision for not just for a big, for a player. He is a very good passer. He makes crafty passes in tight spaces. He anticipates. He throws the ball to where people need to be. He's a very good passer. It's not a thing that he can kind of do. So every once in a while you luck into it. Again, we talked about this last year with Brad. You have to stop. This isn't the world you want to live in. You have to live in the world as it is. You have to accept what Rob and so your players do well and build around those strengths rather than continue trying to fit square pegs into round holes. This is a thing that Rob does. You have to find a way to make the most of it, to utilize it, to put him in a position to use that skill, not just every once in a while when it happens, be like, oh, cool, we do know that he can pass, so I'm not surprised he made that play. You have to recognize this is actually a skill, Bobby. It's not just a thing he's okay at. So this was a big, I'm not saying they're going to totally evolve their offense around the bigs here, but you do have to put your players in a position to do the things they do best.
Yeah, so Tatum and Brown are out as playmakers. Rob and Horford are in.
Well, there's no question, but that's the point is why Jalen isn't and will never be a playmaker. Not only is it just not, even when he throws passes, half the time they don't even hit the guys in their hands, when they are set shooters or they're a little bit late, just isn't a thing he looks to do. Rob, since he's not at all looking to work on his offense, has his eyes up, constantly looking for cutters and movement and things like that. He's got a quick touch. He makes quick decisions. So it is definitely a thing that that he excels at. It's not just something that happens.
Yeah, and he does need to add the other things too, right? He's got to be able to put it on the ground from those positions. He's got to make himself a threat, and that's what I mean. That's probably what's not sustainable off of this one. You're not going to have guys swarming him all the time.
You're not, but
teams trying to rip the ball from him.
Another quote, and Sherrod was about to say something, but another quote from Ime was, he's more than people think he is. This is I was kind of making the joke about Rob being like Neo in the Matrix, where he doesn't know he's the one yet. He has not fully realized his powers. And
it is pretty amazing. You know what I saw
today? He's just going to hold up his hand and stop bullets. I believe Rob could probably dribble if he wanted to dribble. If he wasn't afraid, I'm not supposed to be dribbling. Should I stop dribbling? I believe Rob could start hitting pull-up jumpers if he had his mindset that he's I know kung fu, I can hit pull-up jumpers. He's gotta get there. I think he can start, but Sherrod, you were gonna jump in on I really don't think he literally doesn't know what he can do yet. Yeah.
I know kung fu. I can hit jumpers. I love that. We need to get t-shirts. Rob, t-shirts like that.
No, but kung fu. Yeah.
The thing about Rob is that they have to figure out how to get the best from every player and put it all together in one package. I mean, here's the thing. When I think about this offense, I think so much about Tatum in ISO situation. You need to find that balance between Tatum doing what he does well, with Brown doing what he does well, and letting Rob become more of a facilitator, because Rob has a lot of Jokic in his game. He doesn't shoot like that, but as far as like his court vision, he is – it's kind of sick. I mean, I would say right now in this team, he's probably got the best court vision of anyone on the roster. And if that's the case, you need to make the most of that skill. I mean, if you've got a guy who's your best shooter, guess what you're going to do? You're going to put him in position to take shots. If you've got a guy with great court vision, you need to figure out a way to get him in positions where he can take advantage of that. And the best way to do that is exactly what we saw today. Put him high-low action, have lots of guys moving without the ball along that baseline or just, spraying out towards the corners so that Rob can absolutely just encapsulate all of that and make the right decision. Because I feel way more confident that he's going to make the right decision when it comes to passing than I do Jalen, who, Jalen reminds me a little bit of Jameis Winston when it comes to passing the ball. It may get there. Line. Yeah, it may get to where it's going to get to, but probably it's going to get picked off more than it should. He had a few of those today.
Yeah, I think that's something that Ime needs to just start. I think he's noticed it before. I think it's something that he's trying to put everyone on notice right now. Is the fact that these guys can pass, and that really opens things up. And when you got Jalen and Tatum both healthy, hopefully that's going to open things up and make things a whole lot easier for them. Because let's face it, I mean, the way things were going beforehand wasn't getting it done. It wasn't getting them easier looks, or at least it wasn't best for the offense in the sense of getting everyone involved. I think this puts on more responsibility for guys like Rob and Grant Williams and for the bigs, and they're capable of doing it. You're not asking them to do something that he knows that they're not capable of. It's just about practicing it and honing it and making sure that you're able to. It's something that you can rely on. That kind of passing.
I also believe, I do think this was. I'm a big ball finds ball finds energy sort of guy. I do think that Rob came out with a different mindset tonight, and that helped. I think a lot of the Celtics actually came out with it a little bit today, and you could see it. There were fewer plays they took off. Rob was working it. You could see you could see him panting and sweat. Right. He really got after it, I thought. And I do think that when you play with that higher level of energy, it's always going to go better for you.
And I think it starts with defense. I mean, when Rob got switched out where he's having to guard Chris Paul and Chris Paul couldn't get past him, they
piled up stops. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That was like Harden last year. Same sort of thing. They're switching over onto him. But you're right.
Booker started 3 of 14. That was they racked that up, and that's a great defensive lineup that they put out there to start this one. That certainly set a tone. Then you moved into some of your more offensive looks as it went on. Before we put the names Draymond and Jokic and ones like that around Rob, which I see the hints, I see the flashes. There's other parts of his game that got to come along here. And I did write this in Celtics blog, for our New Year's resolutions for these guys. I did Brad and Rob. He's got to be able to put the ball on the floor a little bit. There were times in this one where, he did kind of look in panic mode, trying to dribble across the top of the arc there. I saw one of the commenters talked about him in the open floor and even just getting quality post touches. Those are the sort of things he's going to need to have consistent places to create from, right? I think the zone lent itself to guys rotating onto him and occasionally doubling him here. But you're not always going to draw that level of pressure just from him having the ball in his hands, right? Because he can't really do anything with it. He can't pull up. He can't put it on the floor. He can't fake a handoff. These are sort of things he needs to start to do to regularly be a facilitator. He's going to do it when he gets his opportunities. But like I said, they only pass to him 18 times a game. He doesn't have the ball a ton, and there's not a lot of places where you can put the ball in his hands. So they have to emphasize.
Yeah, you bring him up. He's got to start to improve. I like him catch. I like him with those, coming out and catching the ball high there, and not just being a screener. I like that. They did that a ton today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's ways to emphasize, and it's on them because he's not going to do these things overnight. Those are off-season improvements. Those are going to take years.
That's what bugs me about Rob.
That's what you wanted to see, right, John? Yeah. Right.
I thought, again, this was everyone talks about the lock him in a gym with KG or Patrick Ewing or something like that, and learn how to play center. Learn how to do some things. Learn how to a couple of post moves, and to pull up jumpers, yada yada yada. His
usage is lower than last year.
Yeah, and in fact, not only did it not happen, he also came in chunky and out of shape. So again, I don't know what. And again, this was everyone's like, oh, he's bulkier. No, it wasn't good weight. It was obvious from day one. We said it. He didn't look explosive. He looked out of shape. He didn't look athletic. I still don't think he's in terrific shape. So he really needs. You're right. At some point or another, he needs the people around him, whether it's, working with the Celtics directly on a program or something, to have a plan. We need, we have goals of you, and we need you to come back this year. It's like you do with Ben Simmons every year. We need next year, Ben, you to be a shooter. And then he's like, yeah, whatever. I'll post an Instagram from the YMCA, a couple weeks before training camp, hitting a couple threes, and everyone will think I worked on it. And that's about it. No, we need to really do something to get you there, because I don't believe Jokic is a comp. I don't believe all these things. I do believe he doesn't have a clue how good he can be yet, because he has yet to hone a lot of skills that he can probably do at a passable level to go along with the stuff he does at an elite level. That's my realistic thing. I don't think he's going to start dropping threes. You're just saying the stuff that he does, we keep talking about. Nobody else does that. Nobody else does a lot of what he can do. Very few people. He just has to get. I think Simmons is an interesting comp in the sense of, imagine how good Ben Simmons would be if he was just a bad shooter, like just like a slightly below average shooter. He'd be a top 10 player because of all the other things he can do. Rob, with just a little bit of semblance of some post-up moves and a consistent 10-foot, 12-foot jumper, would be on another stratosphere, because then you wouldn't be worried about those aspects of his game. That's all he has to do. He doesn't have to be elite. Those just have to be passable aspects, because he does so many other things well. And the consistency on defense, obviously. You want to see. Be a given. Right. Yeah, that's a given, but that's everybody. You have to play consistently. You have to know your assignments. You have to be disciplined. You do see him drift in and out of that stuff. But we're not being unrealistic with it. We think just be okay at some of the other stuff, that you're not doing it all. Right now he's like Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons won't shoot. Rob won't do a lot of things. He gets the ball and he doesn't even look towards the basket.
My big three for him would be dribbling, putbacks. He's got to be able to put those up regularly instead of just dumping it out. And dumping it out is good sometimes, but he should have more putback baskets, just pulling it down each game. And then
he did have a couple from a standing position putback dunks tonight.
His offensive rebounding's been incredible in the last 2 games.
And there's too many times where he doesn't even look to put it back. He's just looking for a pass right away. Right. I hate that.
Yeah. And I think his instincts are to get the ball, to keep the ball moving, as opposed to just laying it up or dunking it on somebody.
Right.
Yeah. By the end of the year, I think you want to see some dribbling, nail down the free throws, and the putbacks. I mean, he gets so many offensive rebounds. He's top 5 in offensive rebounding. Had his career high in that Clippers game with 10, and then he had a bunch in this one as well. So he's one of the best rebounders in the game right now, period. So the things he does do already, as you always say, John, are pretty substantial, and then he can add to that. So there's a ton to work with here, and it's great to see him improving and being more consistent, doing it over more minutes. Like, I've been thrilled with the year he has had.
Yeah, I haven't been thrilled with it.
I didn't like it.
Yeah. I like it, but I'm not thrilled with it, because, again, some of the things that we're talking about are things that he should be doing more consistently than he is right now. When you think about it, I mean, he's an elite rebounder, I think, when he plays significant minutes, but we haven't seen that.
But he's fairly young. Am I allowed to call him young, John?
Young in age or young in experience?
Both.
Because the two are I don't think the two are interchangeable.
I mean, he's a little older in basketball years, but experience-wise, yeah, he's definitely young.
Yeah, I just think for him the biggest thing is consistency in terms of his health and consistency in terms of his approach and attitude towards the game. Because he came out with a different kind of fire in this game that we don't always see. And I don't care if he plays as well as he did tonight, but I do want to see that fire. I do want to see that energy that I'm gonna kick somebody's ass tonight, even if you don't do it. Have that mindset. I don't see that enough from him, but we obviously know it's there.
I want to see him become a big deterrent again on defense too. Like, there were some blocks in this game, and this one we speak of consistency, that were just scary for Phoenix. Like, just him coming through and wiping shots out. He did that repeatedly throughout this one, and that's what you want to see him do consistently for sure. Like there's two sides to the ball here that he can really dominate.
And again, he gets in your head. That stuff isn't only the plays he makes, it's the plays that people are afraid to make because they know that he's lurking there. And it's the same thing offensively. The gravity, the fear of that lob and the roll there and the space that it creates. Again, it's the offense. Both sides of the ball are better when he's on the court playing at or near his peak. They're better with him out there. He makes both sides of the ball better.
And this team would be a lot more fun if he was more involved, right? Like he's the most fun guy they have to watch.
He is
by far.
Right. That's the thing is like for Tatum and Brown, as good as they are, at the end of the day, it's a lot of jump shots is what you're seeing, like just in terms of like jaw dropping excitement. Usually it's it's the Rob stuff, when you see him do the things that he does, you're like,
that dunk against Cleveland last week. I'm still in shock of him doing the little Euro step and just floating up there.
Yeah. There was a bunch of great stuff tonight was one of those. He had about 12 plays where you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, he had a ton of them tonight.
See, I was just gonna say, I feel like now Rob's going back into like, okay, now opposing teams are going to prepare for Rob. You know what I mean? Like that kind of territory, which, believe it or not, that was the case last season. When John was going crazy and being like, man, why don't they play him more? He was starting to get into other teams' scouting reports. And this season, that hasn't been the case. Now he's getting back into that territory. And I love the fact that Ime is trying to get him out of the paint, get him more passing action that way, because that way the opposing big is going to get out of the paint. And that should open things up for the Jays, Of course, I'm looking ahead here, but I think that's the overall big picture here. Make things easier for those guys.
Let me give you a quick Rob quote. He was asked about Udoka's comment saying he's more than people think he is. Rob says, shit, he believes in me a lot. I guess he sees something in me I don't. I'm thankful
Even he's
for the
shocked.
But it's interesting. I guess he sees something in me I don't. I'm thankful for the way he pushes me every day, trying to get the best out of me. I swear, he's that kid on the playground who's like this big and this strong, who lets people bully him, and he doesn't realize like all you have to do is stand up and push him like that, and the kid goes down. Like you're the big guy, Like I really do believe at some point someone's gonna tap him on the shoulder and be like, Rob, you're the guy.
Right.
Don't.
He's like,
right.
Yo, he may think something like really good, like he's
good
like surprised about it. Like,
he is. He does. I really believe he does not know what he's got.
And that's the scary part. I think for both the Celtics and I think for the rest of the NBA, that this guy has ridiculous talent that we all see, Ime included, and he doesn't really have that kind of swagger that someone with his skill set should have. And when he gets it, that's going to be kind of scary, because then you're going to have a guy who's probably pushing himself to be even better than what people think he can be. And to your point, Bobby, I mean, little things that he can add to his game between now and next year, like a short 10 to 12-foot jump shot, being able to, instead of just swatting the ball 5 rows back, swat it a little bit more inbound so that it lines up in the hands of Marcus Smart or Tatum, who can get out and get a transition bucket. Little things that I think
set better screens too. Like he can really start hammering guys on those screens and getting downhill, creating some separation there. There's so many areas he can clean up, as good as he already is.
Sherrod, not to get too ahead of myself, but isn't that what Red Auerbach told Bill Russell? Like, look, man, don't put it in the 5th row or 7th row. Keep it in bounds so guys, you can start the fast break.
Like,
it is. That is. And
that's a hell of a line.
If Tommy was alive, we would have heard so many Bill Russell comparisons over the last 2 years.
Easily.
It's so true.
Easily.
And you know what? They would have been better than the Greg Stiesma ones and the other ones we heard.
I like Steamer, man. Don't talk. You cannot talk bad about Greg Stiesma.
No, I'm just talking up Rob. Like there's.
Did you have him on your show recently? Who had him on? Did somebody have Stees? No,
wasn't me.
I thought he appeared somewhere recently.
I know. I talked to
him. He was probably making his case as a replacement player.
Yeah,
bring it on.
Like I said, we could make this the Rob show. I don't want to go all day long. I do think, again, it's that between same as the team. Is it fool's gold, or is it kind of like, again, I really do believe with Rob, it's a matter of like, this is you, buddy. Like this is a thing you can do. Like, I don't know if it's a focus issue. I don't know if it's a confidence issue. I don't know what it is, but you can do stuff like this regularly and like really be something, just do it. I do think sometimes he just accepts that like, I only touched the ball 5 times today, and they just kind of let it happen that way.
Well, it makes me think this offensive rebounding spurt he's on goes back to about a month or two ago. Like really telling him to get going in that regard. He can get on the offensive boards and be aggressive there. That's something he wasn't doing just because I didn't feel like he felt the need to go do that at an aggressive level. And now that he's decided, all right, that's part of my role is chasing down all these offensive rebounds, he's getting a million every game. So I think there's got to be some sort of repetition and effort by others to involve him.
Right.
They got to find him, right? Like he's not a guy who can create for himself right now. But they have to pass to him way more than 20 times a game.
Exactly. And you see it like with some like Jimmy Butler, it'd always be like, you hear stories about how he makes some other people around him better. And again, this is kind of what you're talking about from Tatum and Brown. Everyone's hung up on assists and potential assists and this and that. But a lot of it comes down to you can do this. I'm going to put you in a position to do it. I want you, like, not just doing it in game, talking to the person, telling them like, you can do all of these things, do them, man. You've got my support, our support to be this thing, because it's a big deal, whether it's Rob or whomever else that is. And I'm not saying they don't do that, but that's kind of part of the whole package is, empower people to, go out there and play their game without fear, and the best that they can. And you're right. You can't have nights where Rob it never gets the ball in his hands at all when you see how many good things you can do about it. You can't have days where Romeo gets significant minutes and only gets 3 shots. Like, it just isn't good enough. That's what we mean about developing them, empowering them, putting them in positions to make contributions, to succeed, to build momentum going forward. Then you see a game like Romeo had the other night and you're like, okay, maybe not. Maybe we should just put him in mothballs. So, I mean, I get the back and forth with it, but that's kind of what you want to see with this stuff. Moving on, I'll spin the wheel. Where do you guys want to go next? We can talk about a host of other different players or different things. Sherrod, I'll give you first crack. The chat wants Grant. I know Bobby's going to go there.
Yeah, let's
he
just get
deserves
Grant out
a segment. Let's get out of the way.
Grant to me was, this was really enjoyable watching him play.
Wasn't it?
It was.
All of a sudden he's exciting. Come on.
I'm the biggest Grant Becker.
Bobby, you know what he did? He actually saw a mismatch, looked at that little ass wing on him, and he bully balled him. I hate when he has those switches and he'll look at the little ass guy on him and then he'll just swing it out to Tatum or he'll swing it out to Brown. Bully his ass. Do that.
Bobby, the first person in market to suggest starting Grant Williams was
you.
That would be
Bobby an apology.
No, that would be this guy right here.
That was you? I thought it was Bobby.
Nope, it was me.
No, I was saying his rise was exciting this year. The things he was doing.
Bobby's been on the Grant train all along. I'm not taking any thunder from him there, but once you realize like
Grant.
No, but you know what? It comes down to some people play better with the starter. We said it on the thread. Like Romeo might be better. Like I wanted to start Romeo, then I saw it for a few games, and then I thought Romeo might be better with the second unit going against second tier guys in an environment that doesn't have Brown and Tatum in it, because I don't think he can thrive with them on the floor. I like the idea of the triple wing lineup because we loved it when we had Hayward, but Hayward is such a good ball handler and passer and gives the game when it needs. And Romeo's not that guy. Romeo needs to kind of slash and be aggressive and look for some offensive opportunities when he has them. I don't think that fit works with him with Brown and Tatum on the floor. I changed my mind on that. I was lobbying hard for him in there. I think he made sense of the second unit. He got bumped to the second unit and he played better, bumped back to the second unit. Grant goes in with the starters, plays great. And I really do think I know that double big thing. I think you're going to be better off if you decide it's going to be Rob and Grant with Horford off the bench. Makes more sense to me on this team, but I don't know if they're going to go there with the two Jays and Smart.
The more I watch them play, the more I'm coming around to that thinking because it just looks better.
I've always liked them as a duo.
It just looks so much better.
Yeah.
And it gives that second unit some more stability, which I think that second unit, they've had so much chaos and just uncertainty that Al gives them. He could be their glue guy, which I think that group needs someone like that.
You'd be feeling good about Grant being a Horford-esque player if he was a little taller, and that's always been the problem with him, right? When he gets these matchups against Booker and these smaller Phoenix guys, he can go to the post and score. This is something he did in college and projected to do well against the right matchups in this league. He hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities to do that, but in certain games, in certain lineups, he can go down there and flash his offensive game. This is what made him such a great player at Tennessee. He has that skill in him. There's just not many situations in the NBA where he's going to be advantageous at the 4 spot, definitely not at the 5 spot. So that's the tricky part of pigeonholing him into the lineup, but they need his shooting. They need some of the things he does offensively right now. Horford's fallen off the map offensively.
But this is where we come back to it. This is where we're stuck. This is where, again, the matter of very simple math comes into play. Baskets scored are as good as baskets, prevented. And they love Ime, defensive-minded coach. Brad, defensive-minded. They love
Ime really is so much like Brad.
They love that Rob and Al lineup because of what they can do defensively. They love it, but offensively, are you getting what you need there? You have to do the math on it. And now that Al's dropped off the way he has offensively, he looks a step slow. He's not really a shooting threat anymore. I really think if you have enough faith in Rob, you've got to make that move with Al to the bench.
And if you're gonna have those two create offense, why are they out there at the same time? It makes more sense to have one of them do it and not have one of them just standing around. Offensively, it doesn't make any sense.
I think most of the time it's tougher matchup for Horford, right? Because the opposing big is usually someone who's more of a stretch wing, And I feel like depending on, matchups, maybe it's better off for Horford to come off the bench. It all depends on which team they're playing against. But, the way Raw was highlighted tonight, or today rather, look, I don't want to discredit the guy, but it's kind of difficult to say how well this starting 5 would do against another starting 5. Because let's face it, this Phoenix Suns, they weren't completely healthy. They didn't have their bigs in there. They didn't have Ayton in there, who's a big part of what they do on defense. So
good point.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but I do like the idea. I like the concept. But again, it has to be on a night-to-night basis where it depends who they're playing against.
Yeah, I think Al, it's been really tough, I think, for him just to make the kind of switches and be impactful like he's used to. I mean, it seemed that whenever Phoenix really early on was having good action offensively, it was whoever Al was trying to guard. I don't think it's a coincidence that Al was the only starter who was a negative plus minus in this game. And so it's, the idea of him coming off the bench playing Morgan's second unit, guys, I like that idea. The more I'm watching him play and the more I'm watching Rob evolve and grow into a guy that is probably going to be a little bit more reliable going forward with this team.
Well, you look at the 2-man pairing, just them alone in 20 games, 230 minutes. Al and Rob are now a net negative with that 98 offensive
because
rating.
The offense has fallen off so badly.
Yeah. And that's abysmal. That's an abysmal offensive rating.
That's also hurt a lot, Bobby, because you've been without Tatum or Brown for so many of the last 15 games.
No, but that's the whole season.
No, I know, but it started okay where they had a positive net rating, but that lineup has been without another scorer for so long that they're still starting those two guys together, but you've had a lot of Schroeder Smart lineups and just lineups that offensively have been more challenged because you haven't had Jalen and Tatum. So it's different. When you have Jalen and Jason, that lineup can hold a little bit better. Without them in there, for sure, it's definitely cratered. You've seen it a lot. Yeah.
In December, it's minus 22.
Yeah, and it cratered when Jalen went out there, and now they've been without Tatum for a couple. It's been really bad. It was much better. It was like +5 or +6 for I thought the first month with that pairing, but I can't remember exactly. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's still matchup dependent. There's no reason you have to be married to anything. If you play the Sixers, you need Horford in there to bang.
It's weird to me.
That's a good point.
Brad would do the matchup thing sometimes, right? Like he'd switch the starting lineup around quite a bit just based on who they were playing. They're completely married to this double big thing. Like it doesn't matter who they're playing. It didn't make sense matchup wise to start 3 bigs in this one, did it?
He said he wanted size in this game, which is weird because Phoenix was without their typical big players. Like he wanted Grant in there because he mentioned guys like being bigger to Booker. You'd figure Romeo is in there to check guys, other guys that are playing. So I'm not really sure what they were super concerned with, in this game to go with that bigger lineup. But it was a matchup-based decision rather than being married to a thing. At least inserting Grant over Romeo was. Maybe there was more to that, and really it was Romeo really sucked last game, so I think I'm going to try something different, but you don't want to say that. But yeah, I'd be playing matchups all the time. There's no reason not to.
Well, we did hear Horford in the preseason saying he prefers to start. Is that something you kind of have to manage from a locker room perspective?
Sherrod, do you believe that
stuff?
One
of those guys.
Do you believe guys get assurances when they come here that like what they're? I don't believe that. I think it's
no, I don't, because players have been around this league long enough, most of them, to know that whatever you're told from an assurance standpoint is probably a lie. You're probably going to be disappointed. You're probably going to find yourself asking, wait a minute, you told me this, and now we're doing that. I think what you normally tell guys is that you're going to get an opportunity to play major minutes, probably as a starter, but depending on how the season goes, we may pivot. And players understand that. I think at the end of the day, guys just want to play. Whether I'm starting and playing, which would you prefer, to start and play like 8-9 minutes, or to come off the bench and play 25-30 minutes?
It'd be an even split there, right? Like, yeah, you could perfectly balance Horford and Rob's minutes based on who's playing better.
Yeah, and I think that's the direction that they're trending towards. I just don't think the two of them collectively are going to give you what you're looking for in terms of impact. I'd like to see their minutes staggered a little bit more so, where they're not necessarily on the floor at the same time, because I just don't think you're going to get the most bang for your buck that way.
Tricky too. It's sort of an offense-defense thing with Al and Rob. Rob, your offense shoots through the roof. Al, defensively, still extremely sturdy at this point. Like, they're running some of their best defensive lineups with him out there. He's probably their best defender right now, right up there with Smart. But you saw it on Wednesday, like, all those Horford threes were demoralizing, and you win the second half with double big again, and you were running those as you were missing all those shots. Like, you want more spacious lineups. You want to create some room for Grant in a game like that, for Hauser to get some opportunity there outside of just that short stint in the fourth quarter. You got to think of offense, right, John? Like,
you're gonna have to tell me, man.
It's almost like they're like completely forgetting.
You don't have to. Yeah,
it's crazy.
We've argued this nonstop. I mean, the game has changed. It is about scoring the basketball. I mean, more so than ever before. Like, you've got to have guys who can fill it, man. It's too fast. It doesn't matter if you're playing gritty defense and lock it down. Teams are so good and they have so much skill and so many good shooters. They can erase 12, 15-point leads in a heartbeat. You have to be able to go basket for basket in these games. And you can't just go and rely on grind it out, slow it down, isolation when they get into their least efficient basketball. How many leads have been erased in 90 seconds? Double-digit leads.
That 16-4 run the Suns put together, what was that, 3 minutes? Like,
boom! It's so what you've got to be able to go punch minutes. You got to go punch for punch, man. So, to me,
it's like those Bruins teams last decade that just wanted to prevent goals at all costs and really didn't try all that hard.
Also, that stuff might work for you in the regular season when teams aren't trying as hard, but you get into the playoffs and then the defensive intensity ratchets up on the other side. Your shitty offense is going to really get exposed. You have to have guys who can score. You have to do it with movement. You have to have guys who can beat, who can make plays individually. Like, you can't be as bad as they've been and survive, really.
I want to
John. Well, I was going to say, with that being said, let's talk about the guy who led the way in the plus minus statistical category. Jay Rich.
Is it Romeo? It's Rich.
Jay Rich. What was he? Plus 20?
He was great.
When he's scoring that way, I mean, obviously, as efficient as he was it 5 for 10, 2 for 4 from behind the arc? I mean, you would wish to see that every single game. You're probably not going to get that all the time, but when you have that kind of production for someone like him coming off your bench, I think it does make a difference. I mean, it gives you that cushion that the Celtics really needed to beat the Suns today.
Yeah, I liked his game. You like. I mean, again, a lot had to do with shots falling as well, but he was playing really well before going on the COVID list, like really, really well.
That New York game, yeah.
I mean, really, really, really well. So that was,
he had 27 big in that game, didn't he?
27 in the game before that. Obviously was horrible against the Clippers, but so was everybody. So you can throw that one away. But he was
first game back.
17, 15, and then 27. The shots, the 3-point shooting in the month of December was up over 44%. I think it was 45, and then he went 0 for 5 yesterday. So somewhere in that neighborhood, he's just been more efficient. And he's got the mid-range situation going, which works for him, but he's knocking down the 3-pointers as well. So he's been great. He was good today.
Yeah, we certainly learned in that athletic piece that you're probably not going to get much for Schroeder here. Richardson's the guy you kind of look at just from a player perspective, what teams need and what he brings that could really help a contender. If you are looking to sell somebody down the stretch here and maybe get a first rounder for a guy, like you like having his contract on the books and stuff and having him be that extra wing next year if you're going to do something. But if you want to open up minutes for young guys, you want to get something at the deadline in a seller's market, he's certainly a guy who's going to be coveted by contenders. The Lakers obviously would love to have a guy like this. A number of other teams as well. He's a guy you got to look at in that regard, and he helps you a ton right now. But he's not the kind of guy who like really moves the needle on their result this year, right? If you pull him out of here, listen, they've pulled him out of here. It's hurt them, but it hasn't devastated them. And it's not like he swings you to being an elite team when he is out there.
That's the thing. If you're committing to a process and something that's long term, removing Richardson actually creates a situation, an environment where you're forced to play more Nesmith and Romeo, whether they're ready or not, which again is probably better for you because you're going to, the thing we talked about last year when they should have realized that they weren't going anywhere was to try to develop those guys so they had them as either assets on the court or assets to trade this year. You're now 1 year later and you're kind of in the same position. So as well as Richardson plays, it's great. And if you're a contender, it's great because it'll help you win some games, but it's going to get really challenging when the trade deadline comes. If they decide like being half in, half out is what's really going to suck. Trade one guy, but keep the others. If you decide you're going to move on and you're really more concerned about the future than the present, then you have to look to trade Richardson. You have to look to trade Schroeder. You got to look to trade Horford, which is going to leave you with shit, It's going to be bad.
Go with this. Where are you going with this? Yeah.
It's going to.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, it's a balance. It's a balance. Yeah. Because you want to weigh, are young guys even going to be here next year? Are they good enough to be brought back after all this or here long term? Or do you feel better about Richardson being part of this next team, whatever they're building here, as like a secondary ball handler, scorer, defender, all those different kinds of things? Like, you have to make a choice between those two roads sometime soon here. Like, you actually have to pick a direction, figure out where you're going. This team, like the roster construction of it still is halfway young and developing and halfway we have Schroeder and Richardson and these kind of guys to keep developing. You could even look at adding other young guys at the deadline possibly too. We've talked about Cam Reddish up and down, him being a guy that you could bring in here and start to develop him as a guy with higher upside than Romeo and Nesmith and all these others here. These middle veteran guys, I just don't think help you a ton in either direction, right? Like, Richardson's not a swing guy for you.
I don't get it
right now. If this was 2020, he'd be a big help, right, on that team that was actually a contender.
It's how you choose to frame the conversation. It's not Josh Richardson is bad at basketball and therefore having him is not a good thing. It's, would you rather have Josh Richardson and have him help you win a game or two to get you into that 8 or 9 situation or 7 or whatever it is? Or would you rather an entire year and by the end of it, you have a good idea whether Romeo and Nesmith could play? And you potentially miss the playoffs. I would say option B is better. I wanted that option last year. It wasn't the argument. People were like, those guys suck. If you play them, you're going to lose. That's part of the point. If you do play them and you do lose and they don't improve, then we're done here. But if they improve, that's good because, again, the secret to success is you have your high-paid stars and you have the low-paying younger contributors that you've drafted and developed who are someday going to be starters and stars somewhere else.
Richardson 33 minutes, Romeo 25, Pritchard 13.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Guys, I want to put a bow on it. It is New Year's Eve. Josue's got parties to go to,
No, he doesn't.
and stuff to do. I did want to say Marcus Smart played an awesome game. We don't need to get too deep into it, but he was terrific all game long. This is, I mean, as you want to frame this Marcus Smart game and repeat it over and over again. Quick tip of the hat to Romeo. Big bounce back after one of his worst games of the year. Looked a lot better, more confident, decisive. His drives were better. A lot of off-ball movement, which was good. It was nice to see a couple of threes go down.
Layup, cuts, all that.
Yeah, couple threes go down, which were nice because that shot was looking really crooked recently. Other things you guys want to say before we wrap it up here?
That's it, man. I'm just really into the Josh Richardson, him getting to the free throw line that many times, him being that productive. I mean, I'm hoping that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Josue. Like, he's been awesome and he's great to have. But as good as we feel after wins, we do have to remember what we were talking about on Wednesday and like where this thing's going here. And that's a consideration there. I wish like they were a great team and he could be a part of that. Because I do, like, he proved me wrong big time. I've enjoyed watching him immensely. I think the fans, as he starts to play more consistently here, are going to fall in love with him. But what's he doing for you in the grand scheme of things right now?
No, he's been great.
You need some young guys, and I was like, I am going to tip a bigger nod to Smart. Man, like, he just makes everything look better for them, doesn't he? Like, the ball is moving side to side through him. Their offensive numbers go way up. I thought he was sensational here. And then, like, he really is just putting everybody in position defensively.
It was going to happen.
This was a good Smart game. This was a really good Smart game. I mean, season-high scoring. He did everything you want him to do. But
he's the guy you missed over the last couple of games here.
He is, but again, like the rest of this team, I mean, consistency. I mean, that it's not even the numbers with Marcus as much as it is the impact that he can make. And I think that's the thing that he hasn't done as consistently as I think you would want to see from a guy who's been around for as long as he has with this team.
Ime talked about it a little bit pre-game. Like, it is really more than a numbers thing. It's an approach. It's intangible things with him. Like, he just does the things on the floor that they need to do in order to be effective. Like, having guys in the right position. You saw how much he was guiding people to the right spots on defense, calling stuff out, and then just being willing to not shoot a ton this year and pass like crazy has been important for them. He's not a big assist guy, especially in this game. Just didn't end that way for him, but the movement he created was important. He looks for guys. He sets guys up in spots. Like, he does the point guard things no one else does on this team. And the only other thing I'll say about this game, the turnovers high. They got to get those down. Brown, again, a mess in that aspect.
Oh, yeah, unreal.
Rob sometimes.
6.
Like, everybody kind of has those games for them, which is getting worrisome.
No, I hear you. I mean, but, Rob did have 10 assists.
Mm-hmm. Just as a team, they got to reduce that.
In an assist to turnover sort of world, I'm not going to bang him for if you're going to, have the ball as much as he had it today and make as many plays as he did. That's still a pretty good ratio.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
I mean, Jalen continues with his 1-for-1
I mentioned
or worse.
Jalen.
I know.
Jalen's turnovers are above assists, which is just nuts. That's the Jameis that Sherrod.
It was 2-1 today in the wrong direction. That's horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, we're not ending on a negative note. Well, we do want to say, and this is we'll at least acknowledge a sad note. Celtics legend, Hall of Famer Sam Jones passed away, 88 years old. Can't go an entire Garden Report with at least giving a tip of the hat to the great Sam Jones. 10 titles, 12. I thought it was 13. With the Celtics in his career. 25th anniversary, 50th anniversary, 75th anniversary team. Obviously one of the all-time greats. A really tough year plus for Celtics fans. We've lost KC, we've lost Sam, we've lost Tommy Heinsohn. So it's a tough one. The hits keep coming for the Celtics family here, but Sam Jones certainly a legend, so we want to acknowledge that and pass along condolences to his family as well. If anybody wants to say anything, whether it's a tip of the hat or a Sam Jones anecdote or anything that you guys have there before we move on.
No, I just want to say I know Cedric Maxwell, reached out and he had a lot of kind words to post on social media this morning. So I guess it just from what I've been told from Max, just in terms of what he meant to the team, and someone that he looked at as one of the great Celtics that he's before his time and before my time, obviously. So I just want to just tip my hat and say to Sam Jones, one of the greatest Celtics of all time. Number hangs up there in the rafters and is there for a reason, and he's someone that of course people who grew up in the 80s in Boston knew all about, so for sure a legend, one of the greatest Celtics of all time, definitely.
And a guy that I think often didn't get his just due for the player that he was and the impact that he made on winning. When we think about winning at the highest of levels in the NBA, we often think about Bill Russell, and understandably so. But Sam, in terms of chips, was right damn near with Bill. So again, it's these are the times where we reminisce and recollect over how great a player he was. But when I think of Sam, the one thing that always comes to mind is winner. That's the one thing that he did at as high level as anyone who's played the game, not named Bill Russell. So again, condolences to his family and certainly to all of Celtics Nation who are, obviously feeling the sting of yet another, as we talked about earlier, another key member of the family who's no longer with us. So,
yeah, I came away from today just looking. Obviously, I don't know much about him, but this many decades out, but underrated all time. Like, you don't hear his name a lot in Celtics lore. Among the all-time great players, like he was, when you look at the numbers and everything, the offensive engine of that team. Hit a ton of game-winning shots in big moments. We have an obituary up on CLNS Media, and I was just kind of exploring all morning the things that he did, and it was a pretty sturdy list. And when you talk about Russell, obviously he does get his big due, like you said, Sherrod. You see the Wikipedia page this long. Jones, it's a little shorter. You didn't hear from him a ton over the years. I don't think he came back to Boston all that much. So he's, just kind of a guy that over time here, I think, has faded from memories a little bit. And he was right there with Russell the whole way. Like, Russell was the defensive piece of that team. Jones was running the offense, and he does kind of deserve like near equal mention in that team's greatness there.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to add, and we've talked about this a good bit, just in terms of Celtics pride and what it means. This is kind of what it means. Like, you have to go back to these days, and so for most of us, this is before our time. Even boomers like me and Sherrod. But I'll say this without trying to sound preachy.
The new age
and there's a lot of
I can't wait to hear Bob talk about him.
There's a lot of people in this chat and who watch this show who are extremely studious and lifelong Celtics fans of all ages, some of whom might have been able to appreciate Sam Jones as a player, but at least plenty of whom who understand like what it meant to be a Celtic, how that kind of carried through the years and into the 80s and this and that. And then, this idea of Celtics pride that was revived by Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen and that team back in 2008. And how many people are concerned that it's not really a thing anymore. And what I'll say is spend time learning and listening to the people who you do know and who you do admire and listen to what they have to say about the generation before them, So all of the people out there who are talking about this, whether it's Celtics who recently retired or guys who played in the 80s like Cedric Maxwell and this and that, they know these are not empty platitudes. It means something to them. These guys meant something to them. It inspired them to be bigger and better and to be part of something that was larger than them. And it was a big deal. And while we recognize that maybe, this generation and kids these days aren't really down with it because the Celtics aren't what they once were, they were everything. They were an empire. They were it. They were the Patriots times 1,000 back then, like they were the model franchise, and everybody who came through here.
They kind of invented what the game is. Like, this guy did some stuff offensively that followed in terms of jump shots, and Russell invented defense and fast break and all that.
Yeah, they were pioneers, and they meant a lot. So again, I would read about the Sam Jones stuff, read the tributes, people who are talking about him now, who are posting about it, some of the legends that are saying stuff, because as I said, it is part of this whole thing that we do here, and that's this team that you watch. And when these guys go, it's like losing to World War II veterans. Like it's sad. This is a indelible part of like our Celtics history and the fabric of Boston. So again, condolences to Sam Jones and his family, and the entire Celtics community, which is mourning today. We do want to wrap by saying to all of you who watch us at the Garden Report, we also have to say rest in peace, Betty White. We just poor Betty.
Just happened, huh?
Just happened. We lost Betty White as well.
That's a tough one, man.
It's another tough year.
99 years old.
They were getting ready for the 100 next week.
Yeah, next week. You're on the 17th.
That was going to be next week? Oh,
I know.
Wow.
So close. But rest in peace, Betty White. But all of you guys at home who watch us, tune in after losses, listen to us complain, listen to us contradict ourselves, listen to us say that we hate Grant and then we love Grant.
Just like you guys do.
A whole lot of love.
Just like you guys do.
We love to hate him.
Listen to us beat up on Bobby, even though we love Bobby. On behalf of everybody, thanks a lot.
Yes,
you guys are
absolutely.
what makes the show. We're like, we don't feel like doing this. Oh God, I gotta watch another. But then we get in here, and you guys are fun. No, saying you guys
never felt that way.
No, but you guys are fired up in the chat.
We're not covering the Rockets here, man. Come on, man.
No, you know what I mean. It's up and down and saying the same stuff, and it's been inconsistent. But we get in here, and everybody here's fired up like crazy, and they're into it, and they want to talk, and it kind of gets us going. So, you guys at home, you really fuel us. So, thank you very much for being with us over the last couple of years. We've been doing this. Hopefully, the trajectory is going up in 2022. So happy New Year to all of you guys. If you have any last words you want to say before we close.
No, that was perfect, John. Yeah, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. I mean, we talk about it a lot on the group chat, like randoms coming up to us and saying or recognizing our voice or something. Like it's super, super cool, man. It's something that the last year and a half, obviously with COVID and everything that's been going on, we don't get out much. So when that does happen, it does mean a lot, It's like, man, it feels like progress. I know you guys feel me on that. So, I mean, Sherrod gets approached all the time. Sherrod's used to it at this point. But, for guys like Bobby and I and Jimmy, it's still sort of new to us. So we appreciate guys. We appreciate all the support, for sure. Thank you.
I'm just some dude on the roster, man. Just another dude on the roster.
Now, this is not
around these parts. Not even around Boston, Sherrod.
This was good, man. This was a good year, and I think 2022 will be a great year for us. We continue to keep. We do this not to be perfect, but practice is about getting better, and that's what we do. We're getting better. So everyone out here, have a great, healthy, happy, safe 2022, and we'll see you on the other side.
Man, thanks for letting us do this thing full time, cover the team, get on the road, do all the different things supporting us allows us to do here. We're going to be in New York next week. Washington later next month. There's a lot of good stuff coming into the new year, and the more you support, the more we'll be able to give you.
Yeah, please do support, subscribe to all our YouTube channels.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, happy New Year, guys.